breast milk science. It's a thing, and it's our thing. We're ByHeart. We're an infant formula company on a mission to get a lot closer to the most superfood on the planet, breast milk. Our patented protein blend has more of the important and most abundant proteins found in breast milk. We're the first and only U.S.-made formula to use organic, grass-fed whole milk, not skim. We make our formula in our own factories in Iowa, Oregon, and Pennsylvania, using a small batch manufacturing process that works to preserve the integrity of our ingredients. We ran the largest clinical trial by a new infant formula company in 25 years and clinically proved benefits like easier digestion, less gas, and softer poops versus a leading infant formula. We were the first infant formula company to earn the Clean Label Project Purity Award. And while we've put a lot into ByHeart, there's a long list of things you won't see on our ingredient list, like no corn syrup, no maltodextrin, no GMO ingredients, no soy, no palm oil. ByHeart, a better formula for formula. Learn more at byheart.com.
Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. My guest, this is going to be just a whole different trip, okay? Because for one thing, it's uncharted territory. It's something that we don't run into very often. And when you do, it's absolutely fascinating. Walk-ins. I remember reading about walk-ins, Ruth Montgomery's book, and I believe it was in the 80s, I think somewhere around that time. And it was Strangers Among Us. Sheila Seppi's a walk-in, and her life changed in 1999. Walk-ins, The Cosmology of the Soul is the book. And she's also included stories from other walk-ins. So it's not just one, it's multiple, 15 others. And so it gives us an idea that there is more going on that we really, I think, have an opportunity to learn from. And Sheila, I really appreciate you doing this and getting people up to date with these kinds of events and what happens, because this pretty much blew you away. You didn't believe in this at all.
No, I did not. But thanks so much, Wendy, for having me on today and sharing my story, because, more and more people are asking questions about walk-ins and finding out that they may be walk-ins themselves. But what happened for me is during my 20s and 30s, I was a really sick person. And I had been diagnosed with, first, they thought I had brain tumors, and I was in the Roanoke, Virginia Neurological, working with them, and they had me in the hospital running all kinds of tests, and they're like, the only way to know for sure is to do this brain biopsy, which I said, thank you very much, but no. They said you also could have fibromyalgia, you could have what they thought was multiple sclerosis. They gave me a whole host of potential ailments, and none of them were very good. And then in my 30s, I ended up with having bone cancer, and I had an oncologist from Duke University. And when they went in, all the cancer was gone. They couldn't believe it. And throughout my 20s and 30s, I had this whole host of crazy events that happened to me in all these different diseases. And then in September of 99, I went to bed a very sick person at that time. I had 3 kids. I was working in a high profile job. I was doing everything I thought I needed to do in order to, get healthy, but, nothing was working. And I was really on a downward spiral. And at that time, I was even walking with a cane. I would lay on the couch to play with my 3-year-old, and it was a pretty miserable existence. And I went to bed in that type of a physical state. And it seemed like it was 7 o'clock the next morning. I'm not sure what time it was, but it honestly felt like someone reached down, grabbed me by the hair of my head, pulled me bolt right up in bed, and it was like lightning ran through my body. And I was in white space. And I don't know how long I was in this white space, but when my vision started coming in, it was really crazy because it was the peripheral vision instead of the frontal. So as that peripheral vision was coming in, finally that frontal vision came in, and I'm looking around my room and everything was the same, but everything was different. And I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know if I'd had a crazy dream. But when I got up and I walked across the floor, I can remember feeling carpet under my feet. It's like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing feeling. And I walked by the mirror and I saw myself, and I just stopped and was just staring. And it was like I was mesmerized by my hair and my skin. And, it wasn't like a vanity thing. It was just like, I was just like, oh my gosh, look at my eyelashes. Look at this. Well, I kept having these odd sensations, and then I started being flooded with past life memories. Now, I have to tell you, at that time, I did not believe in past life. I did not believe in metaphysics. I did not read anything metaphysical. I had never heard of a walk-in. I had no clue what was going on with me, but my degree was in psychology. And so the only thing I could figure out was, with the health crisis, a dysfunctional marriage, having 3 kids, I was probably having a nervous breakdown. And then all of a sudden I became clairvoyant and clairaudient and claircognizant, and I would see and hear and know, and, I would smell things, and I thought I was going crazy for sure. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm having a psychotic break. And so my life went on like this for probably the first 3 months. And I at first started trying to share my experience with people, and it was almost like they did the cross symbol with their fingers and backed away, So I learned pretty quick, I'm not telling anybody anything, because they all think I'm crazy, and I think I'm crazy because I didn't have an explanation. So within 3 months, however, everything about me had changed. My personality changed. My health changed. I was instantaneously cured of everything. And I didn't realize it until I had gone back to my doctors, and they couldn't find anything wrong. And they're like, well, this is just another unexplained event that's happened in your life. We don't know what to tell you. And so I was off all my medications. I started getting healthier. I started, my diet changed. I started drinking more water and eating healthier. My taste in music, clothes, everything about me changed, including the way that I felt about all my family and friends, because my mom was one of 18 children, 17 that lived to maturity. And so we had a huge family, but I had no feeling for any of these people. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I sort of know them, but that was about it. And we'd been a very close family before. The only people that I had any emotional connection or attachment to were my 3 children, my mom, my dad, and my sister. And that was it. Now, I've developed relationships with some of my cousins and uncles and aunts and that kind of thing. But initially, I had no relationship with them. So within 3 months, I actually left the marriage and I moved to the town that I was working in. And then within another 3 months, I was offered a position in an adjoining state, and I took that position. And it was there that I found my first spiritual teacher, who I felt very comfortable with because, number one, she had her PhD in psychology. She advertised herself as a spiritual counselor. And growing up in the South, I was a very religious person, and, spirituality felt good to me. And it was a short period of time that she's like, honey, I think you're a walk-in. Now, when she first told me that, I got angry because I'd never heard of it. I'm like, I am paying this lady to tell me what's wrong with me. She's given me this far-fetched metaphysical kind of hooey definition of what's going on with me. And I couldn't accept it because I had no reference point, none whatsoever. But I also worked with her in a lot of capacities because not only did she become my first spiritual teacher, she was of Hopi lineage, and she herself was a walk-in. And she started explaining to me the nuances of a walk-in and how your life will change and how you don't have a point of reference, because when I first came in, the veil of forgetfulness was very, very heavy on me. I didn't remember I was a walk-in. And at that time, I think my brain would have absolutely exploded at the thought of being a walk-in, because it took me several years to really, I'm going to say walk in, to being a walk-in, really be able to accept it. Because it was so far out there. I'd like, what do you mean a walk-in? What do you mean I switched souls? And that is what I found to be the most fascinating, because the type of walk-in that I am is what's called a soul exchange, literally meaning the original soul, which is the natal soul of my body, left and a new soul came in. And that was very hard for me to believe because I thought when a soul left, the physical body died. And that was, just my knowing at the time. Since that time, it's been almost 22 years and the veil has started to thin and more information has come to me. And one of the things that came to me very strongly, very loud and clear from my guides is that yes, I had to write a book because other people would benefit from it. And, it's like, okay, yeah, I know I need to write a book. Then I was invited to make a presentation about being a walk-in. Well, it's like, how do you put being a walk-in into a PowerPoint? I mean, it's hard enough to explain. How do you put it? Okay. Yeah, what do you do? Uh-huh. And so I sat down and I started sketching something out, and my husband helped me because I remarried for almost 5 years after I had left that original marriage.
Short time out, and then we're going to come back and find out how the PowerPoint turned out. Wendy's Coffee House, my guest, Sheila Seppi. KCMO Talk Radio.
I asked my guys, what happened to the other soul? How can I be a soul exchange? I don't understand this process. And so they actually laid out a process for me that I really super simplified in the book, Walk-In's Cosmology of the Soul.
Wendy's Coffee House, my guest, Sheila Seppi. And we're hearing the story. The PowerPoint got taken care of. We've moved on.
My spirit guides kept telling me people cannot drop into the essence of who they truly are when they're in pain. You're going to have to step up your healing game. When I'm told something by my guides, it's almost like my stomach starts churning, and it doesn't stop until I find what it is I'm supposed to do. And so I started studying tons of energetic healing and physical healing, emotional healing modalities. During that time, my business was building. It was a little slow. And one day, I asked my guys, I said, okay, I just have to ask, what happened to the other soul? How can I be a soul exchange? I don't understand this process. And so they actually laid out a process for me that I really super simplified in the book, Walk-In's Cosmology of the Soul. But I had to add that because I wanted people to know how it's possible for a walk-in to occur. And so the business went along and I was doing well. It just kept growing and growing. My healing was successful. My spiritual groups kept growing. And then they told me again, go bigger, go bigger. So I had to learn some additional healing modalities. And again, my business just exploded. I was working on a client one day and I heard, go bigger. Now this time I just about jumped out of my skin because it sounded like they were standing right behind me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, and my client's like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I think I saw a spider, Uh-huh. I don't know what I said, but I wasn't going to tell them what just happened.
No.
So then I started arguing with them. I'm like, I don't know what you mean go bigger. I'm working 5 days a week. I have spiritual groups at night. I'm doing workshops on the weekend. I don't have any more time. I don't know what you mean. And then it dawned on me that I was supposed to invite other speakers to come and to talk. Mm-hmm. And so I did. And that went along well for a while. And then I kept getting the go bigger, go bigger. And in that time, I had put together an event on our land in Leadville. It's Leadville, Colorado. We're at 10,200 feet up.
Yeah.
We're right at the foot of Mount Massive and Mount Elbor, which are Colorado's two tallest peaks and the tallest peaks in the contiguous U.S., and it's absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, man,
it's beautiful.
There's something magical going to happen. Well, it did. It snowed in June. And so, it forced all of us to be really close together. And it was, I had speakers staying at my house and I had them in Airbnbs and everything. But I was highly encouraged by Andrea Perrin, who is the author of The House of Darkness, House of Light, and then also Barbara Lamb, who is a hypnotherapist. And I started becoming friends with Barbara. I met her at a meeting, and then she did a session on me, and we just kept talking. And Barbara and Andrea both said, you've got to write your story. You just have to write your story. So I really started writing. And then in September, 20 years later, so it was September 2019, my guys were like, get the book done.
Yes.
So I'm like,
yes.
hey, I'm doing it, and so it was amazing. It came together in about 6 months. And I really initially started out to use this as a platform just to tell my story. And it became very clear to me. It's like, if I read this, I don't even know if I'd believe it because this sounds too far-fetched. I didn't know about walk-ins, so I really decided I have to sit down. I have to explain what a walk-in is and how a walk-in occurs. So I put all that information in the book, and I started then asking other people, have you heard of walk-ins? Do you know walk-ins? And people started giving me names, and some people I interviewed and included in the book. And actually, I had 15 other individuals who are walk-ins themselves. But the thing I expected to find is that they would all be a soul exchange. One soul out, another soul in. But I found that there were many, many different types of walk-ins, and one is called a soul infusion. And I think this might be happening with a lot of people right now, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But a soul infusion is when a majority of the natal soul that's in the body leaves, and the body is infused with much more energy of its higher self. And then the other type is called an overlay, and that's when another soul comes in and it literally attaches itself to the original soul, the natal soul, and it kind of sucks up to it like a neoprene suit, and it serves as a battery charger, or it allows the soul to kind of rest and relax, and it takes over. And then eventually it either leaves or it merges with that other soul. And then there's what's called a soul braid, where there are two different distinct souls that are inhabiting the body at the same time. There's what's called jumpers. And jumpers are souls that come in and out on a very temporary basis. Some people who have had horrific events happen to them in their life say, I don't know how I got through it. It just seems like my body all of a sudden became stronger. My mind was stronger. My emotions were calm. And then after the event, it just kind of all went away and I fell to pieces. Or some people will say, it felt like I was so inspired during this particular time of my life, but it only lasted for a couple weeks. And so I interviewed someone who had had a jumper experience. And then the last one, which I found to be very fascinating, is that you have multiple aspects of the soul to come in at the same time. And they do sort of this little dance. So one will come forward for one type of experience, and then it'll subside, and then another one comes forward. And when I first started studying this, the lady that I interviewed was actually a Harvard, had her doctorate from Harvard. And I really paid attention to her because when I first started hearing about this, my background being psychology, I was thinking, could this be multiple personality disorder? But then after talking with people who are multi-dimensional souls, it's like, absolutely not. These are some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And so the personality disorders, though, are a mental illness, and that's something totally different. But me and my psychology mind, it keeps coming up and going back down every now and then. But when I talked to my guides and I said, okay, what happened to my soul? What happened to the original soul of this body? And they told me that my soul basically had a contract that it was going to leave at certain points in its life. And I call those choice points. And so it could be that if the soul felt it was ready to exit, and I believe this is for everyone, it could have left at age 5, or it could have left at age 15, or it could have left at age 20, or it could have left at age 38, which is when my soul actually chose to leave. So I think we all have choice points in our life. So this is the choice point where my soul decided, okay, my contract is up here on earth. I'm finished with what I came here to do. And then my soul came in. Now, most of the time, and really about 90% of the time, there are contracts made on the other side between souls, even before they incarnate. So it's not like you have a hostile takeover of the body. It's like this new soul pushed the old soul out.
Right.
That wasn't it at all. It's actually a very gracious gesture, because when a new soul comes into the body, they have to deal with the life that the old soul had set up.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, and in my case, I had to deal with some of the karma of the old soul. I had to do cellular healing. I had to clear up some of the cellular memories before I could even get started with my own work. When anyone incarnates, there's only a very, very small portion of the soul that can enter into the body. And it is attached actually, when it starts to come down, we have what's called our higher self. And that higher self serves as our guidance system for this life and any other life that's going on simultaneously in this or any other dimension. And it serves to guide us, and it gives us help and assistance. And then as that higher self gets denser and denser, and it comes near the physical body, that energy that kind of moves to and through the body is called the spirit, but the aspect that attaches to the body is called the soul.
Walkins.org. That's the website. Sheila Seppi will continue after a short break. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio.
When I interviewed other people and I heard some of their experiences, like one lady remembered being on a totally different planet than this.
Wendy's Coffee House, Sheila Seppi, Walk-ins, the cosmology of the soul. This is where it gets really interesting. So you're talking about the soul. I had to interrupt before we went to break, so bring it on.
So we have what's called our Shantias Khan, which is basically our oversoul. From that, when we incarnate, our souls are so big that only a tiny portion can incarnate into the physical body, because we couldn't hold that kind of an energy. And so as the soul begins to come down, that part that stays attached with the Shantias Khan is called our higher self. And as that higher self energy gets denser and denser, as it's around that physical body, it surrounds the body. It moves to and through the body. It's in that aura field. And as a portion of that attaches to the body, that is called your soul, which is the personality of the lifetime. The energy surrounding the body is the spirit. We then move up higher to our higher self, and then again back into that oversoul. And as time has gone on, my guides have given me more and more information about even like the primal order of an oversoul and how many layers that there actually are, because my belief is that we all come from source, or Father, Mother, God, however people choose to term that. So there's what's called source. And then from the source, there's the void. And so the void is the place of all possibilities. And that's what holds all of the creation blueprints. And within those creation blueprints are creation templates. And those templates are, they're innumerable. But you have to have a creation template in order for something to occur. And one of those creation templates is for what's called the master oversoul. From there, there's like a universal oversoul and a principal or a cosmic oversoul, and then the individual oversoul, and then we come from the Shantias Khan. And when I say individual oversoul, that would be where all of the templates for people are held. And those are like source units of energy that come together. Because when my guides were talking to me about the Shantias Khan, they were showing me kind of like a piece of grass paper, actually. And I could see that there were templates inside, and they are made up of light, sound, and frequency, and each one of them vibrates with their own frequency. And when I was doing some spiritual work with my teacher back in Kentucky, one time she had us doing meditation work to where we traveled to see our spirit self. And I actually traveled back into my Shantias Khan, and that was one of the most beautiful experiences. It was as if there was nothing there of me, but yet there was everything. And if I wanted to, say, like eat an apple, Well, it wasn't like I even had a hand to hold the apple, but I knew what it was like to hold the hand. I knew what it was like to hold the apple. I knew what it was like to be the dirt that the tree was grown in, having the sap come up, having the rain down on the leaves. I knew all of these things. I knew what it was like to bite into the apple and what the experience was for the apple and what the experience was for the person. There is so much information that we have access to on the other side. I didn't want to make things very complicated, and I didn't want to mix apples and oranges. So I made it very simplistic when I listed all of this type of information in the book, and I called that portion of the book The Anatomy of the Soul. And then when I interviewed other people and I heard some of their experiences, like one lady remembered being on a totally different planet than this. And she remembered the situation that was occurring. She remembered being placed into, she said the only thing she could describe it as was a golden capsule, and that she floated for what seemed like an endless period of time. And then she actually found herself hovering over the body of a 5-year-old child. And she entered that body as the soul of that 5-year-old child was leaving. The next morning, her family witnessed her hair had changed, her eye color had changed. When walk-ins occur, a lot of times there's physical changes that actually will take place. People will get taller. Some people become almost androgynous. It was a very different experience for me to learn about those things because, like I said, even though I knew I was a walk-in and I knew that with every fiber of my being, it's one thing to know it and it's one thing to experience it. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to have other people telling you their stories that's validating your experiences. And so when all of that collided together, it seemed like there was this, I don't know, there was more of an awakening that occurred within me so that I could start actually remembering some additional information about myself. If you would have asked me 25 years ago about an experience like this, I would have said, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. So for me, one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was not just because I was being told, but once I accepted, yes, okay, I'm going to write it, I had a motivation because there was a long period of time that I thought I was crazy. And I really was questioning my sanity. And I was afraid. I had 3 children. And I was like, I can't talk to people like this. What if somebody calls social services? They're like, there's this crazy lady down here who thinks she's got this different soul and, all this type of thing. I didn't want people to have to ever go through what I went through. And so as a result, it was actually this January, we had the first walk-in conference. And there were so many people that have contacted me as a result of that, saying, I thought I was crazy. I thought this. I thought that. Thank you so much for bringing this forward. Thank you for bringing these other people forward to share their stories. That we've actually created a group, and it's called the Wish Alliance. It stands for Walk-ins, Indigos, Starseeds, and Hybrids. So it's wishalliance.org. We've got a website where people are now on there. We offer support to each other. We have events that take place 3 times a month, actually. We have one coming up pretty soon where we just call it Homecoming, and people can get together and ask questions and share their stories. But then the other 2, we have speakers. And we've had some phenomenal speakers that come on and, share their stories. Writing this book, I had no idea how far-reaching that it would be and how it would touch the lives of people. And I couldn't be happier. I'm just so happy that people are finding it and that they're finding some peace within themselves to say, hey, let me look at this a different way. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe what I am experiencing is real. And I'll tell you, I think more and more people, because where we are in the course of history of humanity, we're on this cusp of a major shift and a major awakening, which is why I came in. But we're on this cusp of this major awakening. And I believe because of the spiritual work that a lot of people are doing, more and more people are calling in essences of their higher selves. Now, I don't think that their natal soul is leaving, but I do think they're bringing in much more of their higher self. And then they are going out, and as they become more spiritually engaged and more spiritually enlightened, their vibration changes, and then they come in contact with other people, and then those people they're in contact with, they plant like little seeds of knowledge, and those start to open up like little time capsules. And I think that we're at a very, very exciting time on our planet where more people are waking up and more people are having a variety of soul experiences.
In reading an overview of some of the other stories, this is really complex, and integrating it can be complicated, and it might not even happen at all. So it's worth reading those other stories as well. But I want to go back and revisit how you integrate something like this. And the mentor that Sheila has, I think, really plays a big part. We'll talk about that in the next break. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House. Preston Dennett, UFO researcher, prolific author, didn't believe in UFOs as a kid. However, his brother saw one.
My brother Mark said he'd seen a UFO. He described this incredible sighting. He and his two friends were driving along and came upon this UFO hovering at treetop level. You know, your classic disc, colored lights, a dome on top, and they chased it in their car for several miles.
Preston Dennett didn't believe in UFOs. Having a brother who saw one didn't help. What do you believe? Wendy's Coffee House, Sunday nights at 8, KCMO Talk Radio. Sheila Seppi is a walk-in. The book, Walk-ins, The Cosmology of the Soul. You said you were able to accept this finally when you had a teacher with a Hopi background. How did that make it easier for you to shift?
Well, for me, because I was still coming out of a third-dimensional mindset, and she was obviously not third-dimensional mindset, but she was able to share with me her experience and information about walk-ins that even though my mind was having a hard time conceiving, I believed, because first off, I believed her, and second of all, it resonated true for me. And having a support group, having my circle sisters, first off, it gave my kids, 20 or 30 different aunties to help, but it gave me a support group. I had people when I say, God, I'm starting to remember this stuff, and, I can't believe da-da-da-da-da, and then, and they're like, yeah, I've heard of that, or I'm experiencing that, but we all supported each other because it was kind of like a spiritual awareness group, but there wasn't any other walk-ins, but they could relate to some of the things I was saying, and they gave me the support that made me feel like I wasn't crazy, and that is why we now have the Wish Alliance group, so that other people don't feel like they're crazy. And that's why the book, I wanted that to go out so people would just have a reference point.
Where did the current soul that is here come from?
Well, the current soul that I have is actually a portion of my multidimensional self, because what I have discovered for me is that I have had other lifetimes as Palladian, Assyrian, Arcturian, Mantis. I've been a liar, and I've been in Vega and Andromeda, and all of these other systems. I started out in the Elohim realm, helping to create and work with the angelic energies and that kind of thing. And so we all, it's not just me, we all are multidimensional beings. And it's just through my memories, what my guides have told me, through the hypnosis sessions that I've done with Barbara Lamb, that a lot of this information has been solidified. And so when a portion of myself came in, it wasn't just like some of these other people. One of these ladies is straight from Andromeda, and there was a gentleman who was from Lyra. We have another lady that was from Vega. We have some people who say, I'm at a system in Pallades, but it's far, far away. I'm one of the last stars at the very back. I'm not sure the name of it, but it looks like this, and, yada, yada. So people remember where they came from, but where I came from, it was the culmination of all of these things. And I literally made a conscious choice to come into this lifetime to be a way shower and to assist with this shift that humanity is undergoing right now. And I believe we've already started it. And I also believe that in 2012, we actually moved into the fourth dimension. And now people are moving into the fifth dimension. And being in the fourth dimension, a lot of people still have third dimensional ties. They have third dimensional concepts. They're still working on releasing and letting go and shedding some of those third dimensional ideas and behaviors and patterns, etc. And they're also at the same time working on their spiritual concepts. And so they're moving into a higher frequency. And of course, the higher our frequency becomes, we have to release all of those things of a lower frequency, or they begin to pull us back down. And so I think a lot of people have struggled with the concept that, hey, we are in fourth dimensional reality. There's not like we're getting ready to go there. We are there right now. And you can tell so many different people, the same situation will happen to them, and 100 people will have a totally different viewpoint as that's what actually happened with that situation. Some will think, oh, that was really sad. Some will get angry. Some will say, wow, that's unfortunate. Some don't even have an emotional attachment to whatever happens. And so I think that with the, recent pandemic that we've gone through is a really good example of how different people have viewed what is actually taking place. And so I think that with each and every one of us, that we have our own soul's mission, each one of us, whether we remember it or whether we don't. And that soul's mission is what's going to carry us forward. The old soul that inhabited this body, its mission was complete. And this new soul came in to assist and to be a way shower for the times that we're in now. But again, I think that we're all here. We've all made this conscious choice to be here at this particular time in history. And I think that over the next 10 years, we're going to be very, very surprised with what happens.
It's an amazing story that you have to share. And I know you originally, from what I read in the book, hadn't really intended to come out as publicly as you have until there was an illness. And it was like, okay, it's time. Are you ready?
Right.
When we hear something that says, okay, do this, you think, okay, yeah, I will. Do this. Okay, I'm getting to it. Do this. And it's like, little bunny foo-foo, one more time.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a bump on the head. I think the bump on the head was
that's
like,
what happened.
Yeah. We'll make them read the book for this. So anyway, but you also are saying other people who are going through this, they will know as you're listening, if you have this kind of information, you'll know what she's talking about. And you'd like to hear from them as well, because this is ongoing. It's worldwide. And these shifts are serious when all of a sudden your life changes. So how do they connect with you?
If people are interested in reaching out, they can email me at Sheila at SheilaSeppi.com, and that's SHEILA at SHEILASEPPI.com. They can visit my website at SheilaSeppi.com. They can, and I'm trying to integrate all of these into one, but then they can also go to the walkins.com, which is WALK-INS.com, or you can visit the wishalliance.org, WISHALLIANCE.org. And there, not only will you be able to get in touch with me, there are tons of people on this website that are just willing and ready to talk to people who have questions, who are seeking mentors, who are looking for readings, who are looking for soul guidance. We have so many people listed, and that's under the service section in the Alliance. I encourage you to please visit those websites. Please feel free to get a hold of me. I do my best to try to get in touch with you, within 72 hours. And I do try to answer everyone's email that reaches out.
From the responses you're getting and the information I saw on your website with the YouTube videos, looks like there's a lot of interest in this.
There's so many people out there. There may be another book coming, because I have heard some phenomenal stories that I really think need to be shared. And the reason I want to share these stories is the more variety of stories we have, the more opportunity people have to identify with something that may be occurring in their life.
Check out the book, Walk-ins, The Cosmology of the Soul, Amazon.com. and check out the websites. And you keep writing. And the next time they tell you, hey, you should do this, you might want to give them a little more support, follow through.
Absolutely. There's no more, what do you mean? Because I like to argue with my guides, but no more.
And when you do go on the website, you'll see the stories of the 15 others who are walk-ins as well. Like she said, they are very diverse experiences. A lot to take in. All of my shows post on audioboom.com. So if you miss it in its entirety, you can catch it there. And I also post updates on the blog, wendyscoffeehouse.com. Thanks for listening. Stay curious.
Not all bread is created equal. And if you like yours soft, fluffy, moist, and delicious, then Hero Bread and Buns should be your first choice. But Hero Bread isn't just about taste and texture. It's high in fiber with ultra-low net carbs with 0 grams of sugar. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co, HERO.co for 10% off your first purchase.